Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another lesson. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you how to be persuasive in speech and writing. Now, before we begin the lesson, please subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up if you find it useful. Thank you very much. Now, let us begin. Now, from time to time, there is a need to be persuasive. When you're talking to your friends, when you're talking to your colleagues, or talking to your boss. And from time to time, we have to write persuasive texts. For example, adverts. Remember, when you're writing a persuasive text, or when you're giving, or when you're writing a speech in which through which you aim to be persuasive, you're trying to convince your audience to do what you want them to do. Maybe you're trying to create an advert to sell a product. Or maybe you're trying to create a campaign for a particular cause. Maybe a charitable cause. How do you go about being persuasive? How do you go about being convincing? In this lesson, I'm going to discuss 10 techniques that you can use to be persuasive in your speech or in writing. The first one is rhetorical questions. Rhetorical questions. Now, this is an extremely useful technique when you're trying to be persuasive. A rhetorical question is a question that does not require an answer. When you ask a rhetorical question, you do not expect to get an answer from your audience. Instead, you expect them to start thinking deeply about the question that you have just asked them. But you don't expect a response. Now, if you look on the right, there are some examples. Why not? Who knows? So, now, what's your excuse? Do you want to lose 20 pounds in 1 week? Why buy one when you can get two? So all these are examples of rhetorical questions which you could use in your adverts or in your speech if you're trying to convince your audience. Now, the second technique is repetition. Repetition. Now, this technique is used a lot, especially in adverts. in both written adverts in newspapers or magazines, but especially through the television. For example, sale, sale, sale. The word sale is repeated 3 times. And when you're walking in the high street or in a mall and you see the word sale repeated more than once, it definitely catches your attention. And within no time, you find yourself walking into the shop which has sales. So the use of repetition as a technique works like magic. The next one is emotive language. If you want to be persuasive, if you want to convince your audience, then use emotive language. What is emotive language? It is language that appeals to our feelings and emotions. Okay? It is language that appeals to the emotions and feelings of your audience. It makes them feel a certain way. And it's up to you to choose your language very carefully in order to ensure that your audience experiences the feelings or the emotions that you want them to experience. So your choice of words should trigger the feelings that you want your audience to experience. Now, look at the example. Rescue these cold, homeless, ailing, starving children. This is very often used in adverts on television where they want people to contribute money to different charities. Okay? Rescue these cold, homeless, ailing, starving children. It makes you feel sympathetic. It makes you feel compassionate towards these children because these children are cold. They are homeless. They are ailing. They are starving. Okay? So, emotive language is very often the use of adjectives. So when you use adjectives, remember you use adjectives to describe nouns. So these children are described as being cold, homeless, ailing, and starving. All these are examples of adjectives. So when you're putting together your persuasive speech, remember to use emotive language. Remember to use adjectives very wisely. Choose your adjectives very wisely to make sure that they trigger the feelings that you want your audience to experience. Number 4, rule of 3. This is a very useful persuasive technique when you want to convince your audience. It's very, very popular with politicians, okay? And also in adverts. We find that it appears a lot in adverts. Look at the examples. Just do it. Just do it. I'm loving it. Athletic, energetic, and sporty. So what rule of three actually means is that you use 3 words as your catchphrase. You describe something using 3 words. And they could be adjectives, like for example, athletic, energetic, and sporty. They came, they saw, and they conquered. Just do it. I'm loving it. Okay? So, remember to use rule of 3, where you basically put 3 words together. Okay? Either to describe something or to come up with a catchphrase. Let's move on to the 5th technique, and that is hyperbole. Hyperbole. Now, Americans call them hyperbole. Okay? Hyperbole. What hyperbole means is exaggeration. Exaggeration. In other words, you simply blow things out of proportion through exaggeration. Look at the examples. It doesn't get better than this. I'm sure you've seen that somewhere in an advert. It doesn't get better than this. Now, that is a very good example of exaggeration. Maybe they're trying to sell you a holiday. Maybe they're trying to sell you a cruise. It doesn't get better than this. Look at the next example. The best a man can get. I'm sure you know where that hyperbole is from. I'm sure you know which advert. And if you don't, I suggest you Google. The best a man can get. Something to do with shaving hair. The best a man can get. Okay? So, remember to use hyperboles when you're putting together your persuasive speeches or when you're trying to put together an advert. Number 6, figures and statistics. Figures and statistics, or numbers and statistics. What this technique means is that you use numbers, you use figures like 10%, 100%, and statistics, 10 out of 5 people, that sort of things, okay? Look at the example. Kills 99.9% of all bacteria. Now, if you're looking for a product that is going to kill bacteria and disinfect your house or toilet or kitchen, and the advert says that it kills 99.9% of all bacteria, you will be convinced, won't you? Now, I just asked you a rhetoric question, won't you? You will be convinced and you will end up buying that product. Look at the next example, 100% better germ protection. 100% better germ protection. Now, the figures and statistics used here is 99.9% and 100%. So, use figures and statistics to convince your audience. Okay? Number 7, alliteration. Alliteration. Alliteration is when you use words which begin with the same letter. Alliteration is when you use words that begin with the same letter. Look at the example. Big, beefy, bliss. All those words begin with the letter B. And then once more, you notice we have the rule of 3 in that example. Big, beefy, bliss. 3 words, all beginning with the letter B. So in that case, this person has combined 2 techniques, rule of 3 and alliteration. So remember to use alliteration when you are writing to persuade. Okay? Number 8, anecdote. Anecdotes. Anecdotes are stories, okay? Especially when you're trying to give, when you're giving a speech and you want to convince people about something. You could give them a story, a very short story. And the moral of the story should be what you're trying to convince them to do. Okay? You could say something like, 2 years ago, I had a big problem in the bathroom. I could not get rid of flies. But then I bought this product that killed 99.9% of all the bacteria in my kitchen. And voila, the next morning, there were no flies in my house. So you see, you're trying to convince them by giving them a story about yourself or someone that you know to convince them about something specific. Number 9, colors and fonts. These are particularly useful when you're trying to put together an advert. Use colors, choose your colors effectively. Choose them wisely to reflect emotions, for example. Certain colors like blue, green are associated with calmness. White, red has a completely different meaning, but perhaps you want things to stand out. Okay, so choose your colors very wisely and also your fonts. And finally, number 10, punctuation marks. These are extremely useful when you're trying to put together an advert, or even in speech when you're writing a persuasive text. Some examples of punctuation marks that you could employ or use are exclamation marks. Now, if you look at the example in rule of 3 in number 4, just do it. You have an exclamation mark. I'm loving it. You have an exclamation mark, okay? So use exclamation marks. Kills 99.9% of all bacteria, exclamation mark. The best a man can get, exclamation mark. It does not get better than this, exclamation mark, okay? So use exclamation marks, but also use question marks, okay? Because when you use question marks, then your sentences tend to appear as if they are rhetorical questions, and rhetorical questions get people thinking deeply about things. The next one is quotation marks. Okay, use quotation marks. Now you can use quotation marks to be sarcastic. Okay, and also use full stops. Look at the example under alliteration, number 7, big, full stop, beefy, full stop, and bliss. So use your punctuation marks effectively. Choose them wisely and use them effectively. Okay, this brings me to the end of this lesson. I hope you found the lesson useful. If you did, please hit that subscribe button and give the video a thumbs up and share with your friends, your classmates, okay, and your family members and anyone else who you think would benefit from the content of this video. Thank you very much and see you in our next lesson. Bye bye.